All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're taking a really close look at a single, powerful verse from the Qur'an. Why? Because it tackles one of life's biggest questions, one we've all probably asked. Why are some people well off and others struggling? We're going to explore the whole philosophy behind how sustenance is given out and how wealth and poverty are maybe not what they seem on the surface. In fact, they might be profound, carefully designed tests. So let's start with the verse that kicks this whole conversation off. So this right here, this is our anchor. It's the 26th verse of Surah Ar-Ra'd, and it basically lays out the entire blueprint for what we're talking about today. It starts with this fundamental principle. God is the one who expands provision, and God is the one who restricts it. But then it does something really interesting. It immediately contrasts that divine action with a very human reaction, people getting caught up in rejoicing in worldly life. And what does the verse call this life? It calls it mata, which basically means a fleeting, temporary enjoyment, especially when you compare it to what's to come. This one verse is the key that unlocks the whole system. To really unpack all the layers here, this is the path we're going to take. First, we'll establish the basic idea that the world is a test. Then we'll get into the philosophy of sustenance itself, the why behind it all. After that, we'll look at the specific trials of having a lot and the trials of having a little. We'll even tackle what look like contradictions in some divine verses. And finally, we'll try to see this whole system through the eyes of the people the Qur'an calls the wise. Okay, first things first. To really get what the source material is saying, we have to start with the core context. Honestly, none of the rest of this makes any sense unless we first accept that this life, from start to finish, is designed to be an arena for trials. That's the bedrock. Every other idea we're about to discuss is built right on top of it.
So what do we mean by the worldly life, or al-hayat ad-dunya? Well, it's not our final destination. It's more like a temporary stage, a proving ground, you could say. It's the place where our beliefs, our character, and our actions all get put to the test. And that word from the verse, mata, is so important here. It means something you use for a little while and then you move on. Kind of like provisions you'd pack for a journey. They're essential for the trip for sure, but they're not the destination itself. Their value is purely functional.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because this lays out the rules of the game, so to speak. The way sustenance is distributed, wealth and poverty, is presented as one of the main tools for this divine test. This totally flips the script. It means a big paycheck or a failing business isn't some cosmic report card on whether God loves you or not. Nope. It's more like a diagnostic tool. It's a specific situation created just to see what's really inside you, to reveal your true nature. Are you going to be grateful or arrogant, patient or full of despair? These trials are literally woven into the fabric of life to see what we're all made of.
Okay, with that foundation set, let's get to the heart of it. The verse uses two really important verbs, yubstu, which means he expands, and yakdiru, which means he constricts or measures out. This whole section is about understanding the divine thinking behind these two actions.
And this brings us to the question, right? The one people have been wrestling with forever. If God is just, then what's with all the apparent injustice in the world? Why do we see people who seem to have no morals at all just rolling in money while good, devout people can barely make ends meet? The source material basically argues that if you start with the wrong idea, that wealth is a reward, you're always going to end up with the wrong answer.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. It's two sides of the exact same coin. Bust, or expansion, isn't a prize. It's a test of responsibility. When you're given a lot, the question becomes, will you be grateful? Will you share it? Will you stay humble? Or will it make you arrogant? On the flip side, qadr, or constriction, isn't a punishment. It's a test of resilience. Now the questions are, will you be patient? Will you keep your trust in God? Can you find contentment with what you have? Or will you just fall into bitterness and envy? They're just different exam papers, given to different students.
So, the most crucial point here is that this whole system is not a roll of the dice. It's guided by what the source calls a profound wisdom, or hikmah. The idea is that God, as the creator, knows the inner workings and capacity of every single person. For one person, having wealth might be the very thing that helps them grow spiritually, allowing them to do a ton of good. But for someone else, that exact same wealth could be the cause of their downfall. So the distribution is tailored, it's customized to what is ultimately best for that person's spiritual journey.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the first of these trials, the trial of wealth. This is all about understanding the huge spiritual responsibility, the sheer weight that comes with having a lot.
Now, the source brings in this really powerful verse from another chapter, Surah, to explain one of the reasons for limiting wealth. And it makes a pretty stunning claim. It says that if God just opened the floodgates and gave unlimited provision to everyone, they would inevitably become corrupt and rebel in the earth. This suggests that for a lot of us, wealth is actually a corrupting force, and limiting it is a form of protection. It's a huge challenge to the modern idea that more is always, always better.
The source then goes right after a very common human mistake. When someone gets wealthy and successful, their gut reaction is often to say, as the verse from Surah Al-Fajr puts it, "My Lord has honored me." They see their bank account as a sign of divine approval, like a thumbs up from God. The source is crystal clear on this. That is a fundamental error. Wealth is not honor. It's a test, and it can and often does lead to arrogance, to carelessness, to this feeling of self-sufficiency where you forget about God completely. And the poster child for this, of course, is Pharaoh, whose incredible wealth and power led him to literally declare himself a god.
All right, let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this divine system, the trial of poverty, and what it all means when sustenance is restricted.
So just like wealth isn't a sign of honor, the source argues that poverty is absolutely not a sign of humiliation. It points to the very next verse in Surah Al-Fajr, where a person going through hardship says, "My Lord has humiliated me." And this, the source says, is also a huge mistake in judgment. Poverty is a test, and it's designed to build virtues like patience or sabr, and a deep, solid reliance on God. It kind of strips away all the worldly noise and forces you to really look at your inner self. And as that other verse says, in the end, man is a witness against himself. Only you and God really know if you're passing or failing your particular test.
Now this is one of the most profound ideas in the entire analysis. The source describes the act of restricting someone's provision not as deprivation, but as a form of protective mercy, a rahmat rahimiyah. And it uses this brilliant analogy. Think of a wise doctor who tells a sick patient, "You can't have this food." To the patient, it might feel like a punishment. It feels like they're being deprived. But the doctor, who knows better, understands that withholding that specific thing is actually essential for the patient's healing. In the same way, restricting wealth can be a divine act of protecting a soul from a spiritual sickness it might not even be aware it has.
Okay, this part is really important for getting the full picture. If wealth is such a dangerous test, why does it seem like the Qur'an and other places actually praises wealth and encourages people to spend for good causes? We need to figure out how to square these seemingly contradictory ideas.
So this is the problem we have to solve. On the one hand, you've got verses that warn you about piling up stuff. But on the other hand, you've got verses encouraging charity, which, requires having something to give in the first place. So what gives? Is it a contradiction? The source argues, no, absolutely not, once you understand the core principle at play.
And here we see the two sides clearly laid out. Yes, there are absolutely verses that frame wealth as a tool for incredible good, a way to help the poor, build up the community, and establish justice. It's praised when it's used as a vehicle for doing the right thing. But then you have verses like the one that opens Surah At-Takathur, competition in worldly increase diverts you, which paints wealth as this powerful distraction, a fitna or a trial that can make you totally lose sight of what's important. So how do we reconcile these?
The resolution, according to the source, is actually beautifully simple. It all comes down to context and intention. Wealth itself isn't good or bad. It's totally neutral. It's like a knife. You can use it to prepare a meal for your family, or you can use it to harm someone. The knife itself isn't evil. Its value is determined by the user and what they intend to do with it. It's the same with wealth. If it's earned honestly and used for good, it's praised. If it's hoarded or earned dishonestly, or it becomes the thing you worship, then it's condemned. It's not about having it. It's about your relationship with it.
So who are the people who actually get this, who understand this complex system and actually live by it? Well, the Quran has a special name for them, and in this final section, we're going to explore how these individuals see the world.
The term is ulu albab. It's often translated as people of understanding or people of intellect, but it's really deeper than just being book smart. It refers to people who have a core insight, a deep wisdom. They're able to look at the world, at the economy, at personal success and failure, and they don't just see the surface events. They see the deeper, divine reality that's unfolding underneath it all. They see the hikmah, the wisdom, in every single situation.
And you see this phrase pop up again and again in the source text. So many verses that talk about the signs of God in the universe or the principles of his justice, they end with a line just like this one. Indeed, in that is a reminder for the ulu albab. It's like this recurring signal. reminding us that this deeper meaning is always there, but it's only really visible to those who are actively looking for it, the ones who engage their hearts and minds.
So, what does this actually look like in real life? The source gives us a pretty clear description. Because these people know deep down that both wealth and poverty are just temporary tests, they aren't emotionally hijacked by their circumstances. They don't get giddy and arrogant when they get a big win, and they don't fall into a black hole of despair when they face a major loss. Their emotional and spiritual anchor is tied to something much, much more stable: their connection with God and their focus on the big picture. They see this life for what it is, that mata, that brief enjoyment. And that understanding frees them from the constant anxiety that traps people who think this world is the be-all and end-all.
And the source wraps this point up with this beautiful analogy. A person who is just attached to this world is like a traveler on a long journey. They find this run-down temporary shack on the side of the road, and they get so obsessed with this little shack that they start redecorating it, putting all their time and energy into it, and they completely forget that they have a beautiful, permanent home waiting for them at their real destination. The ulu al-albab, the wise travelers, they might use the shack to rest for the night, but they never, ever mistake it for home. They always keep their eyes on the real prize.
And that really brings us to the final crucial point. If we could truly internalize this perspective that everything we're given and everything that's held back from us is part of a personalized, purposeful, and even merciful test, how would that change everything? How would it redefine what we call success? How would it reframe how we respond to failure? And ultimately, how does it clarify what the real purpose of our very short time here actually is? That's the challenge and the question that this one verse leaves us to think about.